For those unaware, magics are the physical incarnation of magic. Each one has its own unique personality and abilities. Some are friendly towards witches and humans, while others despise humanity altogether. Those are known as human hater magics. In order to obtain a magic, witches must first track it down and complete its unique trial. If they succeed, they earn the right to wield that magic's power as their own, kind of like catching a Pokemon, except the Pokemon usually tries to kill you first. So with that out of the way, let's break down every magic we've seen so far, and of course, major spoilers ahead. So there's 4 magics that first made contact with humanity. The first magic to make contact was Dao, the water magic. Appearance-wise, he's just a little water droplet with nubs for hands. The trial itself seems pretty simple. You drink every drop of water that Dao summons. Once the trial is completed, the witch gains the ability to manipulate water. Next up is the Bonfire magic, which is exactly what it sounds like, a giant living bonfire. Its trial is simple, hold it for 1 hour, it probably hurts like hell, but compared to some of the later trials, it's actually not that bad. Unfortunately, we still don't know what ability it grants its witch, though it's safe to assume it's probably some form of fire manipulation. On the opposite end, we have the Iceberg magic. Its trial is to sleep beside it for the entire night. It's going to be an uncomfortable night, but with enough layers, it's probably manageable. Just like the Bonfire magic, its witch ability hasn't been revealed yet, but it's almost certainly ice-based. The last of the first magics to make contact with humanity is the Breeze magic. Its trial is to walk 1,000 miles when enduring those winds blowing directly into your face. Even though it's considered a human-friendly magic, I'd argue this is easily the toughest trial out of the original 4. Now let's move away from the human-friendly magics a little bit and talk about one of the biggest human-hater magics in the series, Ururo, the king of all magics. Ururo has a regal armored appearance, sporting a helmet, chestplate, and a pair of black wings. He's ruthless, has killed countless people, harbors an intense hatred for humanity, and can even take control of his witch's body if given the chance. His trial sounds simple on paper, destroy his heart, but the catch is that it has to be done by a man. That condition made Ururo essentially impossible to obtain for over 1,000 years until Ichi finally came along and claimed him. Also, defeating him turned him into this blob form. The ability Ururo grants is called Ultra Amplification, massively amplifies the power of other magics. Ichi frequently uses Ultra Amplification to supercharge his other spells and push them far beyond their normal limits. The downside is that activating it immediately knocks the user unconscious for 3 days, making it an incredibly powerful ability that has to be used strategically. Next up is Lazud, the Piercer magic. As a crescent-shaped head and a body covered in black stripes, its trial is insane. You sit perfectly still on the tip of one of its needles for 100 straight days. Somehow, the Scar has managed to complete it by balancing herself on the point, using her feet to brace against the side of the needle instead of putting her full weight directly on the tip. As for its ability, it's pretty much exactly what you expect. Lazud grants the power to pierce through targets with incredible force. We've seen it completely tear through Kizashi. Personally, this trial sounded impossible to me, but I guess just as another reminder that the Scar really is the GOAT. Next up is Inazuri, the Raiko magic. It takes the form of a massive 5-tailed fox covered in electricity. Inazuri is an arrogant magic that enjoys tormenting animals and wanted to do the same to humans. Its trial is to steal the jewel embedded in its heart without getting struck by lightning. Ichi managed to do this by taking advantage of Inazuri's fox instincts, using the scars as bait to lure it into a trap before stealing the jewel with surprisingly pretty little trouble. In return, Inazuri grants the ability to unleash massive bolts of lightning. It's a fairly straightforward magic, but sometimes simple powers I think are the strongest. Now let's keep the Ichi streak going with Uruwashi. This is the Hisame magic. This one completely caught me off guard because she's basically a fashionable ice shark who loves makeup and dressing up. Naturally, her trial revolves around fashion. Require you have to dress her in a way that makes her feel good and beautiful. The catch is that the answer depends entirely on her personal taste, which explains why Team Discar has kind of struggled with this. Ichi, however, comes up with probably the weirdest solution imaginable. He fillets her from the inside and presents her as a sashimi dish. Honestly, it looked pretty brutal to me, but hey, she ended up liking it. After completing the trial, Ichi gains the ability to summon ice sharks that can freeze anything they bite, even summon one large enough to ride or create ice shadow clones. It's a creative take on ice magic instead of just firing ice projectiles. Now let's move on to one of the goofiest magics so far, Macilvane, the Kendaki magic. It's like a tiny mushroom with floppy dog-like ears and little horns. Macilvane creates enormous mushrooms everywhere it goes, believing it's helping the world. In reality, it's destroying forests and releasing these dangerous spores while assuming everyone loves mushrooms just as much as it does. Its trial is pretty simple. You cut its stem and you get to capture it. The problem is that Macilvane hides among thousands of identical mushrooms, and it's just layers and layers of mushrooms that just makes it tough for him to find. Even though Ichi was able to locate him every single time, he wasn't able to catch him. So they got the idea of using Kumigi as bait, grab him, and they were about to cut him, but then Ichi got distracted and Togeist was able to swoop in and claim it instead. So before we get to the biggest threat in the series so far, the World Hater magic, if you're enjoying the video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. I've got plenty more breakdowns like this on both Kagurabachi and Ichi the Witch, which is coming up. So if that's your kind of content, stick around. Now let's get into it. Finally, we have what appears to be the biggest threat in the manga so far, the World Hater magic, also known as the God magic. Unlike the other human hater magics, it doesn't seem driven by hatred or anger. Instead, it just views destruction as simply its purpose. It only appeared around 15 years ago and behaves more like a natural disaster than a living creature, randomly appearing across the world and warping away massive chunks of terrain. Its trial is still unknown, but the prophecy magic revealed something pretty spooky. If the wielder of Ururo doesn't acquire the World Hater magic, it will eventually bring about the end of the world. The problem is that if Ichi does attempt the trial, the prophecy also says he'll die in the process if he acquires the World Hater magic. As for its abilities, we've seen it erase and warp away enormous sections of the environment, often by summoning these gigantic skeletal constructs, which by the way I think look absolutely incredible. If a witch ever manages to acquire it, they'll likely inherit that same space warping ability before they die. During the same arc, we were introduced to Huldra, a 3-headed ice dragon that looks pretty dope. We still don't know anything about Huldra's trial. All we know is that Togai's managed to acquire it, and in return she gained the ability to unleash powerful blasts of icy breath that can freeze enemies and objects, and since Huldra has 3 heads, she can cover a pretty huge area. Pretty cool dragon. The second largest of Togai's magics is Helgonma, a gigantic ice worm that with snow covering the top half of its body with massive ice teeth. Just like Huldra, its trial is still a mystery, but we do know Togai's was able to obtain it. Helgonma can burrow underground before erupting beneath its targets, swallowing them whole, and then can freeze them with its mouth. That honestly, I think is one of the worst ways to go here. I also have to respect Togai's commitment to collecting nothing but ice magics, especially considering how furious she was with the scars had Ichi steal Uruwashi right from under her. We also get to see an ice tornado magic in her magic circle, so that's a cool one. Sticking with the giant magics, we have Iskandar. Design-wise, this might be one of my favorites. It resembles a floating cloak made of countless layers of robes while maintaining a humanoid silhouette. It has a really mystical presence to it. Iskandar first manifested around 500 years ago, and unlike many of the strong magics, it's actually pretty human friendly. We even see it showing some kindness towards the younger Discars. So his trial requires the witch to fully control Iskandar's power and accurately strike a distant bullseye. It demands incredible magic control, strength, and precision to the point where most witches would pass out. But obviously, as this is Discars, she persevered and eventually earned Iskandar's respect as well, granting its user a similar sniping ability. Another one of Discars' magics is Golcanda, the confession magic. It reminds me a little bit of No Face from Spirit Away, except with the face of an owl instead. Its trial is called the 1,000 Questions. To complete it, a witch must answer 1,000 questions truthfully, while also making sure that none of the responses offend or displease Golcanda. Otherwise, they die. Honestly, considering Discars' personality, I'm kind of surprised she managed to avoid offending it for that long. This magic's ability makes it totally worth it for a witch. Golcanda grants the ability to bind the target and force them to answer any questions asked by the user. We've seen this work successfully on Bakugami to reveal its trial, although it's failed against the World Hater magic. Next up is the prophecy magic, Mersem. Mersem possesses the body of a woman who's currently in a coma. Design-wise, she has a colorful jester-like appearance that reminds me of a lighthearted Harley Quinn. Personality-wise, she's energetic, surprisingly cooperative, actively giving witches prophecies and trying to guide them towards the future she foresees. At the same time though, in the beginning she was a bit indifferent towards the World Hater's magic potentially destroying the world. Her trial is still unknown, but we do know that Mersem inhabits unconscious bodies and allows the witch to complete her trial so she can continue using that body as her vessel. As for her abilities, Mersem's primary power is prophecy, allowing her to glimpse possible futures and warn others of what's to come. Beyond that, she also seems capable of performing magician-like tricks, making various objects seemingly appear and disappear at will. The full extent of her powers is still a mystery, but she's definitely one of the more unique magics we've seen so far. At the beginning of the next arc, we see this frog magic, with nothing really known about it, but yeah, it's there. Anyways, we're also introduced to Airadne, also known as the Origomo magic. It's essentially a giant spider with a cage strapped to its back. Honestly, I think it's a pretty cute little guy, and compared to a lot of the other magics, it isn't all that difficult to acquire. Its trial is pretty simple. You just have to destroy the cage on its back and cut off the horn hidden inside. Ichi was able to complete the trial after Gokuraku was pretty much torturing it. Pretty cool too, it gives Ichi the ability to weave webs in the air before they take form, or you can kind of use them to stab someone and create chains. Next up is Tortle. It's a massive tortoise magic capable of trapping things inside the space between its body and its shell. Its trial is still unknown, but we know the Scars was able to acquire it. In return, it grants the ability to imprison either a person or another magic inside of its shell. Of course, if the target is powerful enough, they can eventually break free. We have Dingdong, a magic that resembles a gigantic bell with elephant features. Its trial involves ringing the bell a certain number of times, although the exact requirement hasn't been revealed yet. Even the scars had to ring it in incredible speed before finally completing the trial. Its ability is pretty interesting. Dingdong can trap a target beneath its bell before teleporting them to another location. It's not foolproof though, because you can dig out of it. But now going from cute to still cute but menacing, we have Yatsukami, a massive dragon whose body is made almost entirely of thick ropes. The exact details of its trial are still unclear, but it appears to involve pulling one of the ropes. Whatever the requirement was, the scars managed to complete it successfully. The ability it grants is exactly what you expect. It allows the user to bind and restrain targets using its rope body. Just love the fact that both the scars and Togais have their own dragon magics, because I'm not gonna lie, I have a soft spot for these dragon designs. Let's get to the big bad of this arc, Bakugami, the Joyous Sorrow magic. Bakugami has two distinct forms. On the outside, it appears as a sleepy gray and white tapir, but inside, it takes on the form of a gray-skinned humanoid with large ears and traditional layered robes. At first, Bakugami appears to be a human-friendly magic that simply removes people's sorrow by hugging them, but that's only half the truth. It doesn't just remove the sadness, it erases the natural mourning process and even deletes some memories tied to that grief. Its trial is surprisingly straightforward though. You just have to survive the 10 years of sorrow that Bakugami has absorbed. The catch is that Bakugami chooses who gets to take the trial. Gokuraku managed to endure it, but because Ichi was a registered challenger, he ultimately became Bakugami's wielder. Bakugami's power allows it to return all of the stored sorrow to another person, completely overwhelming them with grief. Ichi's use of Bakugami, or now Bakjam, was pretty cool, as he was able to take sorrow and give it back in a way that killed his opponent without necessarily putting him through needless torment. So now let's go to a more goofy magic. Speedray is exactly what it sounds like. It's a massive stingray that looks completely relaxed. Its trial is still unknown, but the scars managed to acquire it. Its ability lets her launch or transport people over huge distances, making it a surprisingly useful mobility magic. I really hope we get to see more of this goofy guy in the future. One of the other major human hater magics introduced in this arc is Hitsugi, the reverser magic. Honestly, compared to the other magics, he mostly just looks like a regular guy with long red hair. Like the world hater magic, Hitsugi despises the ideas of humans and magics coexisting. Its trial is called the death of 10,000 corpses. Hitsugi resurrects thousands of dead bodies, forcing the challenger to kill every single one of them. We even see him resurrect the Scars' own brother, making the trial pretty damn cruel. Despite that, the Scars succeeds in acquiring him. Hitsugi's abilities are pretty versatile. He can reverse attacks, teleport, regenerate, resurrect the dead, and overall just makes for an incredibly dangerous magic to fight. Although after this arc, he's basically trapped in a fate worse than death, to be honest, but I'm gonna guess that he's gonna get out somehow. Next up is Chronoweaver. This is the time magic. He's our first epic magic, which is a magic that is a long shot to obtain, either because of the environment or potential catastrophic damage it can cause. Design-wise, he's this tall, feathered black and white figure that immediately stands out. He's also the first magic that we've seen who is in a relationship with a human and has a half magic, half human child, which to be honest, I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. Despite that, Chronoweaver isn't evil at all. He's pretty reclusive and has little interest in humanity outside of his wife, Minerva, and their family. His trial is currently unknown and unfortunately will probably remain that way since he sacrificed himself trying to protect his family before anyone could acquire him. His powers were pretty insane though. He could pause objects and events in times, trap things inside temporal spheres, rewind the state of objects, and even skip portions of time entirely. If anyone had ever managed to acquire him, he would have easily become one of the strongest magics in the series. So now we have Kizashi, the Octobomb magic. It's a magic completely obsessed with Chronoweaver. Kizashi has a humanoid upper body, massive octopus-like tentacles, and a number displayed on his body representing how many lives he has remaining. He absolutely despises humanity and wants to have stronger friends because then he can't destroy them, which explains why he constantly fixates on Chronoweaver. He also can't stand the fact that Chronoweaver chose to live with a human woman. His trial involves killing all his lives, which Discards was able to do as a merciful kill. But yeah, Kizashi can swim at incredible speeds, regenerate, withstand absurd amounts of damage, and summon multiple brothers. Each one seems to specialize in something different. There's Speedy, the fastest brother, Muscles, the powerhouse, Gloomy, who's said to be the nastiest, Stretch, the longest, Teeny, who's surprisingly pretty happy, Chonk, the slowest but heaviest, and finally Pooh, who we thought was harmless, but he turned out to be the real monster here. Next up is another magic that also looks like a sea creature. This is the Toxiterror magic, which takes the form of a giant jellyfish. So despite it being highly poisonous, it's actually a human-friendly magic that didn't want to hurt anyone. Instead, it simply wanted a place where it could safely live without accidentally harming others. Its trial is still unknown, but we know that Fujimin was somehow able to acquire it by force, We haven't seen the full extent of its abilities yet, but we do know its poison can be used to alter people's memories in a way that can make them fond of Fujimine. It also seems to grant her regeneration abilities like a jellyfish. Next we have Muskat, a Majik who's tied to the ribbon candy family. It has a much smaller body with hair made entirely out of gun barrels. Honestly, it's kind of like a more feminine version of the gun devil. Its trial is currently unknown, but we do know that it grants firearms to gifted daughters of the ribbon candy family based on their magical talent and aptitude. It's pretty funny though, because Amadoro turned 6 years old and immediately got rewarded with this giant machine gun. Then we have the Maiden Majik. It resembles a sludge-like humanoid woman and is another Majik whose trials remains a mystery. What makes this one interesting, its ability. It appears capable of neutralizing or curing the effects of another Majik's power, as we saw when it counteracted the Toxiterror's Majik's poison. Finally, we have the newest Majik introduced so far, Hikari. Design-wise, this thing looks absolutely incredible, but since we barely learned anything about it, I'm going to save the discussion for part 2 once we get more information. As more Majiks get introduced, I'll definitely be updating this series, so if I missed anything or if you have a favorite Majik, just let me know down in the comments. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more manga and anime content, and check out my other breakdowns, especially if you're a Kagurabachi fan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.